Bad mistake. And then I'm going to have to end this one and start over. I meant, well, no, I'll just keep on going. I meant to do it and try my data to see if I got an evener flow, but maybe it doesn't make any difference whether I'm in data or I have Wi-Fi. Maybe I'm just the jerkiness is normal for Facebook Live. I guess that's how the various certain vloggers, like I watch We Are Change for his reports from France, which aren't bad, but I find him a little bit too Trump. I understand where the Trump element comes from, but you're really Bernie Sanders guys, right? And stop talking like baboons, okay? I won't get into it. I'm here to talk about, as the title of this indicates, I'm here to talk about things I've realized in listening to, and makes me want to know further dates on certain formations in British Columbia. As I said, I've my previous videos that have to do with the glaciation here, and also our volcanic complexes. Some of which are currently active. But also in relation to the planetary electrics that I've learned about the Velikovskian theory of cosmology, which reinforces Tesla, what we know about Tesla, or what he knew, and why was he knew it, perhaps. As I've gone into in my previous videos, I just dropped something here. I'm sitting on the porch. I know now why Dr. Jackson Crawford, who does the Old Norse videos, wears gloves and buckles up, because he's outside in Wyoming and Colorado in the weather. I'm surprised he doesn't have earmuffs on. It's not like here in British Columbia, but it is damp and wet. And anyways, I've had a lot of thoughts on this, and I've been thinking about, like, we have a thing here in BC called, and I've said to Dr. Nick Zentner from Washington, who has the huge floods videos about the Missoula floods and all of Seattle geology. Come on to the Seabright. You know, I'm going to be in the Fraser Canyon. I'll show you like all the different bench lands, and we'll talk about how the river formed. And I think a lot of the Fraser Canyon formed under the ice because there's these different lake levels underneath it. And it's not just a question of damming of it cut through the Fraser Canyon. Before it used to go out through the Okanagan. You see the Fraser Fraser globe with the ice cap. It used to melt out through the Okanagan. The Okanagan River was the outlet, and then it finally came through. That must have gone through. Maybe it went through Seaton for a while. I don't know. Through the Pemberton Pass and out Lillooet. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it just always went down through the Fraser Canyon. It was always in one major river, but it would have had to have been underneath the ice cap for the Pemberton Glacier and the Bridger River and all the other side glaciers that form all the different basins that were cut out. And Canyon is a glacial, or is it karst? It's a collapsed karst, from what I understand of it, like the Middle Range, but it had a huge, I don't know, like what Pavilion Lake is, still studying, but what else is in the Clear Range? The Clear Range and the Marble Range together on the east side of the Fraser. The Clear Range is behind Fountain Ridge, opposite Lillooet, and runs down to Lytton and east to Ashcroft up to the Cornwall Hills near Cache Creek, and then on it goes to Pavilion, Mount Martley and Mount Cole on the southwest flank of Marble Canyon, and then north of that, the Pavilion Mountain, and is part of the Marble Range, which is separate, has a separate body on the other side of Kelly Lake, also a karst lake, and another pond there. I can't remember its name. And the Edge Hills, but the Marble Range is the same in Marble, and I wouldn't be surprised that there are caves in the Marble Range just like there are in. You don't want people straying into those places, and you don't want to get caught in there. But it's a marble formation, so who knows? Who knows what's hidden in there? Who knows what's deep in the chemistry that they're finding? Where they're finding odd things in Pavilion Lake. Very interesting. Which I won't do in this video, because the geology of BC has a lot of things in it. There's a formation called so that's one area. It's on Marble, and the Fraser Canyon is down to the left of it, and there's this huge bend in the Fraser. It's crazy. At Pavilion, you're headed a little bit southeast, and by the time you're coming down into Fountain at Glen Fraser, or about 16 miles, 14 miles, is an old roadhouse a friend of mine had in it, Gibbs Place, right? Our friend's place is called Bill's Place, and it was like the farm or the roadhouse. I'm not sure actually where the original farm was of Savona. I think was his name. The gentleman who started, the Italian who started the first grapes in BC before he went on to found Savona's when the Big Bend Gold Rush started, and that's what founded the town of Savona, was as a port for the Big Bend Gold Rush. Founded by this Italian who had started planting grapes fountain on the land that now I think is the same as the Fountain Indian Reserve, or the 8 Mile, which is the junction for the Fountain Valley Road, which was fountains in the days of the gold rush. So anyway, all the way up the river, getting back to the geology, right there, right below there, just below there at 8 Mile, the river is going east-west. Now that way, to the left, I'm speaking with the map, to the west, it's going straight north again. The radius of the turn is only a mile. The mountain on the top side is butt end of the Camel's Foot Range. It's well, it depends on where you count it from, but from the one summit immediately opposite Fountain Ridge, it's about, let me think, that's got to be at least 6,000 feet. That one. Is it higher than? It's not. It's not as higher. It's higher than the nearest Fountain Ridge, but it's not higher than Fountain Ridge. So maybe it's under 6. And the river at Lillooet at the Bridge River Bridge, or the Bridge River Rapids, the river at Lillooet is maybe 75. So the river might be 800 and 900 or 1,000 at the Upper Fountain Rapids, which is immediately below Upper Fountain. I'm doing this the scale of relief to explain the relief to you. The relief is severe. It's a giant turn in the mountains, and what it is that Fountain Ridge to the south of it is a chunk of crust that's broken off and floating. In terms of tectonics, floating between, I haven't thought to contemplate its electrics, but floating between the Fraser Fault, which is the Fraser Canyon north of there and all the way south down to Yale or farther, and the Yalakum Fault, which comes in from the northwest, from the Poison Mountain area, which is the line of the South Fork of the Bridge River, became known as the Yalakum River after the mountain range. No, not after the mountain range. Supposedly in the Chilcotin language, but the Chilcotins say no, it's Chilcotin, and the same with the word Shulaps and Tyotin. No, apparently they don't. They're not Chilcotin words. So I'm thinking they might be Canyon Shuswap. But yeah, the Yalakum River is the name of the South Fork of the North Fork of the Bridge River, and then the Bridge River Canyon is another amazing switchback S-band, also 180-degree bend, followed by another 180-degree bend the other way, same as the nearby Fraser Canyon. Very strange. But that had to do with, I don't know, structure of the rock and the pressure of the Bridge River Glacier coming from the west. Now, I've spoken before in my previous video about the volcanics of the upper river. You know, and why there's no eastern Lillooet ice cap covering all those mountains. Well, that was melted off by the flames, you know, the fires of the earth, fires of the electrics that are part of the pattern under the geology. This was all under the Great Ice, you know. The Great Ice, the Great Weight of the Cordilleran ice cap, you know, that underneath that. That's what I wanted to know about the age of things. I'm sure the Chilcotin basalts are many millions of years old, but they're a layer of a flat-topped layer of lava. I think flat-topped. I don't know. There's chunks of it all over British Columbia, and as far as I understood, it erupted beneath an ice cap, and it's washed like it is. The same with the Columbia Lava Plateau. Now, that is a different date than Chilcotin basalts. But there's chunks of the Chilcotin basalts all the way down into Carameus and Merritt and stuff. This is just south of the Thompson River, east of this lower Fraser, for those who don't know British Columbia. Quite a long ways from the Chilcotin, where it's named for, which is the Chilcotin Plateau, which is the lava plateau. And also the Nechako is also lava plateau, as well as lake bottom. But there's lava all over BC, all over Wells Gray Provincial Park, where they just found this amazing new cave, you know, and it's a lava cave. It's a lava cave of the kind, it doesn't have stalactites and stuff that I know of. I don't think there's any marble in that area. You know, maybe there is, I don't know. There's a lot of caves in BC that they haven't found yet, including some of the area I'm from, which I will say no more. I said too much in other videos. I don't want to see city people wandering around in places they shouldn't go into. This includes looking at active volcanoes, okay? Like, the whole thing about stay away from Meager is stay away from Meager. Meager's northwest of Pemberton, straight north of Whistler, pretty much, over the top of the Pemberton ice cap. This Meager goes on a big one, folks. You don't even want to be in Whistler. You won't be able to breathe anyway. But, you know, when the earth shakes and the mountains roar, you know, and the earth roars and this weather starts around this volcano. It happened with St. Helens, and St. Helens, she just burped. She only did 35 megatons. She can do 350. Bacon can do 750 last time it blew. It left the black peaks. You know those two little black peaks off the side of Bacon? Side of Mount Baker that everybody sees when you look at Vancouver, beautiful Mount Baker, those two black stuff to the right. Yeah, take up the outsides of their the left of the right flanks and draw the line up. It was taller than Baker, the mountain that blew off when the Black Peaks blew. Okay, that was a long time ago. This was before the Fraser Glacier, as far as I know. Anyway, so the Chilcotin basalts are there. Is and the Columbia basalts is these eruptions from beneath ice. I think the Chilcotin basalts are a lot older than the Columbia basalts, which are a lot older than the channel scablands into which they get carved. And the same with the Chilcotin basalts, I think, are the same formation as what's all through Wells Gray and Canham Lake. Canham Lake, we call it, but it's Canham, they say, in upper jargon, but Canham, I've always called it, means canoe in the Chinook jargon. Canham, I don't know how they say it in there's a First Nations band. I don't know how they say it there. I should ask them. But Canham Lake is what we call it when Dad took us there when I was a kid. It's got a water. I didn't know this was a waterfall at the east end of the lake that flows down towards Clearwater, which is on the South Thompson, the North Thompson rather, north of Kamloops. So that's all still the same little plateau. That's the chasm, which is right by when you're at Clinton, you take not Highway 97, you take the old way towards Lone Butte, and you go by the chasm, which is Painted Chasm, it was called. It's like a site along the road, which isn't as scenic as Marble Canyon. But you don't appreciate Marble Canyon until you get out the Barkerville component of the road, which also Gustavus von Blind, Blindwright, I mean, the von Blindwright, I think it was in Swedish, but Swedish-British entrepreneur. Anyway, so this is part of the geology of BC, these formations I'm talking about. So underneath the ice, you had the Fraser Glacier. But the age of the Chilcotin volcanoes, a thing called the Anaheim hotspot, as the Cascadia plate moves over. That's what we are. I don't know what that's what the plate is called that moves over Anaheim hotspot. And the earliest volcanic that I know of in the hotspot belt, like Hawaii is a string of volcanoes. We have one of those in BC. It's moving sort of northeast. It's at Nazco now, which is southwest of Prince George, northwest of Quesnel. Little ranch town. There's a volcano there, and they're having like deep seismics indicating magma movement. So you have the original one is by Alert Bay on Queen Charlotte Strait, what I like to call Aquila Sea, or it means the language of the area. Quack is the other name for it, but it's too complex. The Aquila Sea, the Queen Charlotte Strait. It starts there, and then there's another set of cones on the other side of Queen Charlotte Strait, and then there's a pattern of cones, and they include Tsitsutl, which is this huge mountain that Highway 20 goes by between Nimpo Lake and around the Dean River, and then you go around, you through a little pass down Great Hill, the big hill into Bellacoola, and the Mackenzie Trail and stuff like that. Alexander Mackenzie came through that way, the famous Grease Trail. But the Chilcotin Plateau has Mount Downton, it has Vic Hill, I think it's a volcano. It has, or looks to be like one of some kind, and then you have others in the chain. The Itcha Mountain, and the Ilgachis Range, and then further northeast, of course, then you eventually get Nazco. Now, there's other older volcanics. Not the Marble Range. I'm sorry, Black Dome. Black Dome Mountain is the northern end of the Camel's Foot Range, which is it ends pretty much opposite exactly opposite where the Marble Range ends with Big Bar Mountain, I think is part of the Marble Formation. And there's Big Bar Lake, Big Bar Ferry, and then across the river, and then as you go up Churn Creek, it's the Fraser going northeast. You'll notice from that area of Big Bar, when you look at the pattern of Big Bar Lake and the pattern of the creek, they go northeast or northwest and northeast respectively. But south of that, Pavilion Creek and Watson Bar Creek and all the other Slot Creek and all the other ones flowing into the Fraser from there, other than Fountain Creek, which is that anomaly in the U-turn in the Fraser. But the Ridge River, the Thompson, and the Stein, they all flow southeast. They all flow south into the Fraser. And this I found out years ago was because of that was the center of the ice cap. So while the Fraser was flowing underneath it, cutting its canyon, deep below the basalts, which the Chilcotin ones already been, this was a later glaciation than that, so they'd been formed in an earlier glaciation. I don't know if this is the same glaciation that formed the Columbian basalt when it withdrew and exposed that area to the channel scab landing. And I don't know from Dr. Zentner yet whether he can tell me whether when the channel scab landing thing happened with the letting go of Lake Missoula, if the Fraser lobe was indeed still down over the geology of Seattle video. And I've asked him to do another one on the geology of the lower mainland in Whatcom County, which we're a unit, a geographic unit, and there's a Darrington, the Devil's Mountain Fault that Darrington runs east-west across to Saanich, Saanich roughly, I think, or Sydney. A lot of the other faults in this area are northwest, southeast, all kinds. There's a lot here than just the Cascadia subduction zone. And the volcanics are related to the Cascadia subduction zone, but under Velikovskian electrics, you see, what Tesla must have understood, and I think what Heraclitus implicitly understood and is in the Ringveda. All in there, that they understood it through intuition, the knowledge of the divine does not necessarily take mathematics to understand. We call it the divine, but the cosmos, the Heraclitean fire. Which reminds me why I typed Heraclitean fire in my last video. I forgot to mention a poem by Gerald Manley Hopkins. I can't quote it directly, but the nature is Heraclitean fire. We are all shards of sparks within, kind of thing. As I've been on about the bit of Beethoven, the Schiller, Ode to Joy, Good Funkin, the shining sparks of joy that we all are. The shining sparks of God that we all are, which is the basis of the Doukhobor Creed. We are all body, soul, and spirit inside Ian, God, all of us each. And this is Dionysian, that we are all God. And God is in all of us. And when we dance, God is in all of us. That's the whole point of the Dionysian. It's also the point of when the Doukhobors meet, they bow 3 times. Because there's God in everything, there's God in every single person. There's Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. So it's the union of the divine, the power of the electric fires of the world, right? Because I got thinking about the size of the American ice cap. This last glaciation, remember there's been a whole series of glaciations for millions of years. I don't know the full length of them. Many years of long glaciations. And why is it that we don't find the reasons that they went through so easily? It's because maybe we were looking at the wrong reasons for their melting. That maybe this planetary exchange of fires, it seems that, fairly recent ones in a certain case, but it must have happened before. That somehow all the Velikovskian idea that all the planets closer must have happened many times before, over the millions of years. That the planetary harmonics wind up that for some reason we all get attracted to each other again and zap. There's this cosmic fire in heaven. It rearranges our planet and probably the other ones too, so that the red spot on Jupiter, maybe that's like the discharge point. But we know that the poles have flipped, we know the magnetics have flipped a few times to cause that. Only magnetics can explain it. Only electrics, only Velikovskian science can explain it. It's very interesting, all very interesting. But it just comes to mind so much I know just about BC, right? So you have this giant Cordilleran Laurentian ice cap. We could talk about the other 4 or 5 ice ages when there was another ice cap. And a different part of the world was flipped. Other parts of the world were maybe glaciated. I don't know. The temperate zone. We keep on looking above shoreline for the ancient world. For the very ancient world, the only place we're going to find it, really most of it, anyway, we find bits of it above the 1,000-meter level, but down below the 500-meter level, or however sea level, when almost all the water was locked into ice. What's down there? Well, it's too far for our technology to get, but we've been swallowed by the sea more than once. We'll be swallowed by it again and consumed by the fires again. But maybe it's not only by our own device that we're doing this. It wasn't by our own device that destroyed us before. Us? No, not us. Maybe somebody. The people of the Golden Age, only the most recent memory. What was in the 25-million-year-old footprints and things that they find, and the 5-million-year-old, whatever those all are, they find, dinosaur tracks, or the metal objects they find in, million-year-old ores and metal or metal ores and stuff like that, coal. Well, okay, there were other ages before us. You know, the age of the dinosaurs was a separate age. But the age of the megafauna wasn't. The mastodons and so on. We know they were wiped out. They were from northern BC. And we would have had, yeah, saber-tooths here. There's a story from Chilcotin War, and there's some from Alaska that suggest to me that the saber-tooths might still be around, one or two of them. You know, you don't want to run into one of those, right? But yeah, we used to have these ancient beasts in all our mythology and the dragon slayings, these tales of the comet. And yeah, about the dragons, you know, this is all in these videos I've been watching. You know, the Chinese dragon is indeed, you know, always a vital life force, but it's also water. More than it's fire, it's a water thing in the Chinese thing. The water plays into this whole story of where did the water come from. And as this one video actually said, if you're looking for an exoplanet, you're on one. You know, we're not where we're supposed to be. Where we were, wherever we might wind up, is a giant ping pong ball. Maybe we're all just slingshot. Maybe there's an oscillation going on within the field, attracting the planets back out and forth each time. I'm just be raving. Yes, I'm raving. But I'm just taking the extensions of the possibility of planetary harmonics in an electrical universe, right? And that's what would draw planets together again and drive them away. But it would also mean that during these great ice ages, which is why I brought up all the different ice ages, 5 I think they've been, as well as these massive planetary warmings that we've had, which are also chemical effects like the methane. But again, I brought the methane to go down to the ocean. What did that? Electrics. It explains it really well. Right. Anyways, but it also, you know, not freeze dried, it flash froze the mammoths. But also the devastation in North America wiped out the fires and everything else, wiped out the saber-tooths and the giant elk and the giant beaver. I wouldn't want to run into a giant beaver, would you? Oh my God, nasty things, big teeth, big slappy tail. Ooh. Yeah, nasty. Yeah, you know, a bear size of a tank, you know. Okay, yeah, I don't want to live on that continent. So the humans, if there were some here, there weren't many here until that happened. That got cleared off, and then after that happened, well, I don't know. There's all kinds of these mound cultures and are a lot older than just the 2,000-year lineup that mostly that you hear. They're still older than that in the Americas, I'm sure. You know, we just haven't looked deep enough yet. And the whole Mexican story, remember, none of that was covered in ice. Mexico, none of that was covered in ice. But all of it has these stories about this flaming thing in the sky and the destruction of the world. Now, Teotihuacan had those stories, obviously, because they had the feathered serpent already. Even though Teotihuacan was destroyed by the Great Years of Darkness, by whatever happened in 537 when Krakatoa blew, or if Krakatoa was an eruption of a pillar of fire, an Indian one, and so on. I've read them all since I was young. I understand them all fairly well for old white men. And it all fits. The electrics, it all fits with everything I know about the mythography, but also about British Columbia. So we got this river flowing from beneath here, and as I said, I'll invite Dr. Zentner to come up and explain to me, you know, what about these little lake bodies here and which ones? Some of them might have been formed underneath the ice also, which is another thing to examine them for their sedimentology of the benchlands on the Fraser. Each one should have core drills to determine their age and what's down there in terms of volcanic layers and stuff. They'd be just like their old lake bottom, right? Sediment, their old lake sediment. They'd be just like volcanoes to drill into. Not volcanoes, yeah, them too, but ice caps to drill into. But back to the ice caps, of which we still have a few on the coast, big ones on the coast. So Masco, Silverthorne, Waddington has some big ones with a volcano under it. Littlewood ice cap, probably. There's volcanics under all of it, but there's ice. Now, the volcanics of the ice, that's some interaction we could discuss because it happens because of volcanics on high mountains, including Kilimanjaro and so on. But because of what I'd said in the previous video about the electrics and the different nature of the electrics of an ice cap versus an ocean, and an ocean at different temperature, like we've got the warmer water off the coast with our warmer ions and static water, you know, and it's not just an ecological problem for the fish or a temperature problem, it's electrical, and it causes the lightning storms here too. Those are all electrical discharges that are causing all the great fires. Right. Anyway, so there's huge electrical discharges and these huge weird fires in California, which we haven't seen before, which indicate a higher level of energy in the fire, Where is the energy for the Paradise Fire and the things that were seen in the Malibu fire and even during the Mendocino and Tweed River complex fires last summer? Where's all that energy coming from? Straight out of the atmosphere? No, not just the atmosphere. It's coming from somewhere. It's coming from the North Pacific. You know that big thunderstorm in Venezuela and that lake, Maracaibo, is it? That big lake that's that bay in Venezuela you see on the map. You know, every day of the year it's got 80 thunderstorms on it. Yeah, yeah. You know, I mean, that's all electrical storm coming out of the atmosphere. That's an incredible amount of power. Now, the Earth has a lot of energy in it. That's, when we think of it as all, that it's all fire, we think of it as magma and flame and gas. No. It's metals. No, Velikovskian electrics posits a different structure to the Earth than I don't want to get into here, including the Hollow Earth. I don't want to go there right now. God, the things I wind up talking about. But this is what happens when you open the Pandora's box of having a real hard look at what we don't know in Newtonian science and why Newtonian science and quantum mechanics and the search for the boson, the expensive search for the boson. Have we really accomplished anything with it? So now they're talking, they've got warm fusion now, which is like low level cold, like sort of warmer cold fusion, I guess, but it has to do with it. Like, why are stars formed out of the lightest element instead of the heaviest one? Why aren't the stars uranium furnaces, for example? Well, there's a lot heavier elements in uranium now. But yeah, mass gravitational theory does not explain the universe adequately. Electrical theory explains it sweetly. It's a fascinating idea. It really is. Somebody who knows physics, the history of science, philosophy, and remembers Heraclitus and wants to go. This is what I was saying about the search for Heraclitus now is on. I should retitle this, The Search for Heraclitus. We need to find more about him. We need to find out more about what was known in Iran and who they were and where they came. We need to look on the isthmus, not whatever it's called, but there probably was an isthmus connecting the mountains of what's now Cyprus to Upper Chaldea, to the Fertile Crescent, because Cyprus is just as old as the home of the Cyprian, of Aphrodite, Venus, the morning star. And so that was the center of her cult. Yeah. And who is it that the Velikovskian theory says is the cause of the rising of the seas? Is it the 6,000 one, the 12,800 one, or the 20,000? These are all the years before Christ. This person we call Christ, who I died in India, and where he is remembered. And the only reason that's not acknowledged in the West is because we can't admit that brown people know something that we white Westerners have allowed in our thinking system, and that includes academia, who banned Velikovsky pretty much, or banned him to the point of having a public book burning. The guys, and I think this is like, and it wasn't that he was arrested or anything like that, but his ideas were considered dangerous to the scientific establishment and also to the war machine. The war machine had this certain trajectory they were on. They really loved the gravity things with the V2. They loved taking a single technology out of all the unified field and taking advantage of it. This is the Faustian problem, that we take technology and we use it for more than we should. We don't use it wisely. We don't use it holistically. We don't use it with an eye to the future. Right? This was Kafka has this line about that we were not allowed to eat of the. We were not driven from the garden because we had eaten of the fruit of the tree, and the knowledge of good and evil, meaning also science, which Faust was going to feast of, right? But so that we would not eat of the tree of life, but only the tree of life as an immortal had you eaten of the tree of life. Although the Colbert has a different take on what all that means. But for me, the metaphor of Kafka was that only have you eaten of the tree of the parable. It's in his parables and paradoxes. That only had you eaten of the tree of life. That was why we were driven from paradise, so that we would not even become immortal, because we had too much knowledge for our own good, for our own planetary, because we had not also, there was no fruit of the tree of wisdom, which only immortality can confer over time, once time has become irrelevant, It's only once you take things out of time as irrelevant you consider the static form of the universe, the static form of the universe, the electrical form of the universe, the electrical storm that is the universe, that is the Bay of Maracaibo, that are the ideas in your head, that are the movements of the seas and the winds. So you see, poetry and science and myth, they all fuse, you see. This is why poetry and the Upanishads and the Rig Veda and Voluspa and Hesiod and more, why they can all, why they, excuse me, this is more Neo-Citron. I'm sorry for the coughing, rude, but I get talking too much, and I need another Neo-Citron. I'm sitting on my porch, because I like it out here, and I like the light better. I've got my glasses off, I can't see a damn thing, but, you know, my eyes better with the glasses off, right? So I won't need contacts, that's another thing I appreciate a GoFundMe or a Patreon for. I really have to learn how to get that stuff done, because I've got so much to do in the day, and then I do this. So this is my way of writing letters now. This is my letter to the world. I like teaching. I like teaching what I know. I'm not a raving lunatic. I'm putting together science that I know, scientific facts that I know, that fit together like a jigsaw puzzle that's just all crystallized into space. And I keep on crystallizing the plan. I just keep on seeing more of it. So about the geology of British Columbia and the volcanics I mentioned, we've got the Anaheim Belt, we've got the Chilcotin Belt, we've got the ones up underneath the Alaska ice caps, or on the inland lead, the Azizi and Mason complex. And often the ice and the volcanics are linked all over the world. Not so much on Etna or anything like that, you know, or Vesuvius, but, you know, or in Scandinavia, but in some areas, like along the Ring of Fire, they certainly are. Kamchatka, you know, Japan, and so on. But especially the Alaska Range and the Kluane Boundary Ranges, Fairweather Range complex. The Boundary Ranges is a few volcanoes on the inland side of down the Yukon Basin. The mysterious one near Atlin during the gold rush. I'm not sure which one it was. There's Lava Fork, there's the volcano, there's other areas, good area in different parts of Alaska. And yeah, then you get over the not just into the Aleutians, but in the Alaska Range, there's some big ones I know because I charted them for the Bivouac Canadian Mountain Encyclopedia that's online, which I did too much work for free. I give myself away for free too much, so I'm going to try and I don't charge for I charge, but I guess you could say I'm busking with my mind, you know. So that's the Patreon. I got to start it. Somebody help me start it, and somebody help me get it going. Get me some contacts, because anyways, give me some teeth. Anyways, don't mind me. I just got to think about this. Everybody else pumps their Patreon all the time. I have to start doing it too. But right now, just somebody get a hold of me and say, Michael, buy your teeth or some contacts or give you some gas money. $20. Be appreciated, okay? And if you're in Canada, you can interact it, okay? I think you can from the States now too. I don't want to use PayPal for obvious reasons. Who they are. As it is, I'm using YouTube, but it's a nice service for what I'm using it for. And this is also politically the digital TNN, and I should be talking about democracy. There's very important British Columbia Canadian democracy issues going on right now that involve the Wet'suwet'en people and also the nature of what democracy is in Canada. But I know, as my friend Dragan tells me, there's no hope. You can't fix politics, and no, of course you can't. Right? I'm only one spark out of 7 billion. Right? Myself can do nothing. But what I can do is relay my information and maybe try and reprogram enough others to realize, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, you know, wake up and realize the power of the ancient past over all of us. And I don't mean that in a mystical kind of way, but in terms of how we made us what we are and what we believe, how it is that we are now living on the edge of time. As one of my songs, I have a playlist of my songs called, you know, Songs from the Edge of Time. And we've come to the end of it, our concepts of distance and mass and gravity, without considering the whole, and the whole of the unified field. And the unified field, the most powerful force and the most evident to us, which manifests as light, which we measure time and space, is the electrical force. It is a unified field. It is the one field. All other theories are emendations of it, formed from trying to narrow down to try and specialize. There was also specializations. There's also specialization which can be abused into weaponry and things like power dynamos and dams and centralized power grids to do other things, you know, and the science that's brought us to the point that we are, including computing, and we now have an electromechanical extension, mechano-electrical. I don't know what the term is, but we're using it as a technological extension of our minds now. The interface is getting better and better and better. And like I say, I wish there were 7 of me. I could do a lot. But there's only so many people capable of understanding the things I talk about. So I've tried to title my videos to attract the attention of people that are interested in things like, I call it planetary electrics, which is the Teslan, Velikovskian, Heraclean theory of the universe. And it all makes sense. And it explains like Hawara, the vaults under Hawara, and the things that we don't know that are buried under the things that we do know, and the things that are buried under the waters of the previous changes in the world and the different ice ages. Back to the ice caps again. It's all a giant loop for me. You see, they're all connected. The ice caps, because they're static charges, it would be, let me guess, I don't know, I think they're lower in charge than the oceans in terms of their capacity. They're very, very high conducting. So let me think now. The 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 the, the rock of the planet, metal, whatever we want to call it, right, is not as conductive. And the ice, I think, is more conductive than the water. So it must be very highly charged. This is why maybe they talk about when the ice caps were advancing, they were coming so fast and they had lightning and suns above them. There's a theory about them. When they advanced so fast, they would build storms. Well, how did they build storms? Well, by electric charges massing all the ions of the atmospheric water to rain on them, to snow on them, and it created the increased the albedo effect, cooled the planet rapidly. They advanced like thunderstorms. With thunderstorms, by one giant thunderstorm. But that because of that, they would be the site of, especially when positioned over the magnetic pole, wherever it was at the time, because it wasn't always where it is. That would result in, if it was even at long range, like at the range we're still at Venus now, or if it was the moon, the right range, the right situation, the wrong thing happening, some kind, or just a certain charge built anyway. But that would be the ice caps on where, rather than meteors hitting the Earth, that would be what had caused some of the melt, the 5 great glacial ages. We've only seen the back end of one. We're still kind of in the back end of it. It's not all the way gone yet. When it's all the way gone, folks, and all that ever since then, it's all been a scam. It's a religion. Commerce is religion. It's a religion of mammon. It's a religion of material things. It's what Goethe warned about. It's what Schiller warned about. What the Romantics had given up on and turned into fantastic imaginations. But even in doing that, told great cosmogonies and cosmologies, but you go back to the metaphysical question before, and you like Shakespeare, the clarity of mind, there are greater things, Horatio, underneath this earth than you or I, whatever that line goes. I don't know the bard all that well anymore. I don't remember anything anymore, except all I know now is the questions I have about all that I know. And all that I know about BC and the volcanology has me wondering about the shape of BC during the Hiawatha impact. Let's call it the Hiawatha impact again, right? And like I say, when the Mesa and Aziza and Mesa is the level mountain volcano, lava fork and Sayax, which is in the Nass, and lava fork of the volcano, and others in the Panhandle area are newer than that. Mesa is quite old. Aziz is about 1,000 years old. But the Chilcotin volcanoes, I don't know. I don't know when Setsudal erupted or the pattern of them. Like Nazca is really recent, right? Nazca's active now, basically. It just hasn't broken surface yet. It will. But I remember I mentioned Black Dome. I was talking about the Melville Range and the structure of how the Fraser come down underneath the ice cap, and the pressure of the ice cap was there. Well, Marble Dome, or Marble Dome, is it? Yeah. It's the northern one of the Camel's Foot in the angle of Churn Creek, which flows northeast into the Fraser. The beautiful, spectacular painted canyon, gorgeous, gorgeous. Of cut bench lands, the Empire Valley Ranch and the Gang Rancher in that area. The Big Bar Ferry is just downstream from there, a few miles downstream. Uh, Black Dome has got a gold deposit in it, which also indicates volcanics, but there's also it's a chemical volcano, like a giant hot spring volcano from ancient times. And I don't know all about the chemistry of it, what was under it, but this also was under ice. That's where the Bridge River volcanoes when they erupted, or were they? I don't know. That's all interesting questions. I'm not a volcanologist. I'm not a glaciologist, and some of you who are will criticize me for talking about things I don't know enough about. But I don't know enough about because they're questions that I kind of want to ask about the age of the things that still don't understand how the Bridge River Canyon formed. Right, completely out of the fracture of the rock. I can see because of the pressure of the Bridge River Glacier. But what melted the Bridge River Glacier and was it the Bridge River cones that melted it? It had already withdrawn that far. So that's why sedimentology of Carpenter Lake would be very important to have a look at. And any lake in the interior of that scale that is like a glacial silt lake, that would involve, if there'd been volcanic eruptions upstream, you'd definitely have stuff in the sedimentology of if you did a drill into the old, what had been is the bottom of the lake now, but had been marshland, flat marshland when I was a kid. Elsewhere like that, all through the interior, but also in this deep drilling, of course, they're finding out there's more than enough geothermal in this province. We don't need any other kind of energy. I could have told them that years ago. They don't listen to guys like me, though. Like, they're not going to listen to me. Well, they don't listen to me about democracy here. What would constitute true democracy? I've had other names in medieval club. I was Mars the Wanderer, Bjarni Handel, who cares? And then what's in a name? A name's not very much. And I've been exploring the possibilities of, my patronymic would be Michael Anderson, Endrasen, if I did the old proper Norwegian way. And you'd actually refer to me, you'd actually address me as Anderson if we were speaking in it was that the patronymics hadn't overtaken the Norwegian language. That's how you address to somebody. You address them with their patronymic. You only would use the personal name to distinguish them from someone else. And usually with the personal name, you would use it with a combination, like Kettle, had one eye. Kettle, I can't remember the name of it, but it was like One Eye. My Kettle is like a teapot kind of name, but I'd be like Michael One Eye because of my wandering eye, or Michael the Wanderer, Michael the Traveler. So as a songwriter, I'm playing around with names. I don't know, Skookum One is my political name. Big Skookum I've used for other things, but it's maybe too regional. It's a good word. Skookum should be used worldwide language. Is a good word. It's from the Chinook jargon, which is part of our regional history here, and everybody spoke it. Not just the natives. It was a native language that was adapted and learned, but that word penetrated a local dialect, and we use it a lot. And it doesn't bottle into one meaning. But I'll do a whole video on some of the other words in the Chinook jargon at another time. Big, strong, durable, lasts a long time, honest, reliable, can rely on them. That's kind of the things that infer about the Skookum One, the one who is Skookum. And I'm big and I'm Skookum. I'm solid and reliable and good guy. And I'm big, And Michael the Giant because I am one. Michael the Traveler because I am one. Michael the One because I've got this wonky eye. This is the eye that I'm looking at you with. Sometimes I try and look for this one now. Sometimes if I really look, maybe with a different set of glasses on. If I have the contacts will never coordinate my eyes because the unique glasses pull your eyes together, and this one still doesn't go off to the side. So I'm wearing the glasses just so I can see what's going on screen, But they get in the way of you seeing my eyes. And as an actor, am I vain? I don't know. I'm not really an actor anymore. I couldn't be bottled for acting now. I've said too much. And that's the problem with actors. They always have to be someone other than who they are. And they never have time to read more than the parts that they're given or the novels that they're trying to read or whatever they're reading about. A lot of people that have acting have some pretty stupid political ideas because they're not educated people. They're people who have been, working, making commercials or living on fantasy scripts. I don't know. It's a strange world, showbiz. It's a strange world. Showbiz and politics now. They're the same thing, man. They're the same thing in a way they always have been. because ancient religion was all showbiz, it was all showbiz. But there was magical elements to it. You had frankincense in the temples with the gods speaking to your ears, and that was edited by the Christians. And Iran was burned by the Christians. But I wonder what survived in Iran. What else might be in Iran? So that's the other thing of my Patreon. In the long run, I want to fund a trip to Iran. And I'm not an archaeologist, but I want to find an archaeologist who's going to dig at Iran and let me go find in the Temple of the Seven Planets and find what the Mongols didn't destroy. And all you young people out there listening to me that still have time in your lives to learn ancient Greek, between the libraries of Herculaneum and the great library of Epicurus that was found in the monastery Metro, there's 10 lifetimes of work for 20 young people who learn ancient Greek. Where the money would come from, I don't know, but there's a lot of rich Greeks and a lot of other rich people. And I don't know, maybe Patreon, the concept of Patreon, even if it doesn't last, and this whole idea of, I say, it's a wholly different universe of, and it is electrics, blockchain, interestingly, is that interesting. But we have to move to a post-monetary economy where human effort of and sharing knowledge, where knowledge is information, if information is power, and information is money, then somebody please give me some power and some money. I've got lots and lots of information. But this is what Patreon allows. It's for people to support each other's study and work and talents. And often such people are polymathic. And we always think of polymathic, you have to be able to mathematical, philological, and all these languages and do computations. No, that's that mathematical bias that's come into science in the course, and the Darwinian bias that's come in, and the bias against gravitation that's come in, that's required all this further complicated science and specialization, which, yes, has brought us to the point where we can appreciate this now, but now it's becoming so very true that it's only the generalists that are able to see the whole picture and get the holistic picture, and the only solution to the planetary problem we are all facing is the holistic picture. And it would be the electrical universe, and the understanding that the great ice caps I've been speaking of and are referred to in the title of Glaciology and Volcanics of BC, the planetary electrics, right, is that they would be where the bolts of energy would from, and the same as most of this is happening with the oceans, the same as most of the heat is in the oceans, most of the electrical activity is with the oceans and the ice caps, because, well, maybe not, but the SEMA, which is the silicon and aluminum sublayer of the ocean, is the SEMA, the silicon magnesium complex, which are the mountains in most of the continental plate. That they have different solid state properties within the electrics of the planet, and they're not necessarily connected to the mantle. And what's in below the mantle, that's really a thorny thing and Velikovskian thing. I don't want to get there right now. But that the planets might have been once closer, and suggest that they had these electrical discharges. Let me think now. 20,000 years, then 8,000 years later, a little over 7,000 years later, and then about 7,000 years later. There's a 7,000 year cycle there. Now, anybody who knows harmonics and understands Mr. Tesla's ideas, and understands also Plato's ideas of harmonics, and also harmonics and electrics are all the same thing. And that's why music is so powerful, because it affects all our own bodily electrics, and we can resonate with it and dance and know how to sing. We're built for it. We were designed by electricity itself in the form it's given us. This thing about inherited memory, I when I was in the Philippines, I found myself acquiring Tagalog easily. And I found Old Norse easy when I first, not easy, it's still mysterious, but it's strangely familiar when I first found the Elder Edda. And all of us have found Tolkien familiar, but I found also, even possible, once I understood a little bit of the lexicon and the conjugation, I was understanding more at it fairly well. But even Norwegian comes to me like water, as I had common. I thought it was because my grandmother spoke it to me when she was young. I'm sure she did. But, my dad didn't come back from Iceland. And I keep on saying in my other videos, I've got to find someone in Iceland who can tell me if they know of a family that maybe moved to maybe Mondal or Sorland somewhere, which is where Grandpa's father came back to. I don't know, maybe my distant relatives that my brother knows something about that, but where in Iceland. I know there's a connection to the Orkneys, I think, on the Hoynes side, which is the grandma's family. On grandpa's side, no, from Mondal, in Surland. But yeah, someone came back from Iceland. It was that branch of the family. So this is why we're descended from the first white child born in the New World, which is Snorri. Alexander, whatever his last, I don't know the patronymic for the Snorri. He became Snorri the priest. He was the Archbishop of Iceland too. Left 300 children, and everybody's descended from him, including about a quarter of all Norwegians, which would include people coming back from Iceland, including my family. So, anyways, history's all one. History's all one thing. So even here on the coast, history of Norway, history of BC is similar. What great wave might have torn our coast apart the same way that tore apart the Norwegian coast? Well, that is thought, isn't it? Because remember I said about the Hiawatha impact, or the discharge, the Hiawatha discharge, maybe, causing the vaporization of the Arctic Ocean and this massive wave into the Atlantic and hitting, the western British Isles and Norway and making that ragged coastline. Western Iceland making that ragged coastline. Well, let's look at the angle. Some impact somewhere in the South Pacific. I don't know. Impact or electrical discharge. So I'll close by mentioning George Churchward because of the Mu theory and this thing about the lower sea levels. 20,000 years ago, yeah, there would have been a continent in the middle of the Pacific because Polynesia, most of those mountains would be by land in some way. I'd have to go look at the bottom, but this is the whole thing about when all the ice was sucked up, when the ice had sucked up all the oceans. Polynesia was a continent, as was Indonesia, and India was a lot bigger. Africa's about the same size. The Caribbean was not a continent, but an extension of North America, a link between. Was there a landlocked sea in the Gulf of Mexico? I don't know, maybe. Right, what was down there in the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico? It's like the bottom of the Black Sea, these older shorelines, the bottom of the Strait of Fuca. What's down there? How deep do we go to find out the early human civilization, the golden age before that we know about, it's in our primal memory, it's in all the religions of all the world, all the stories, all the tales of the worlds before. The Australian Aborigines, they remember this really well, right? And the Hopi, talk about the cycles of creation and destruction, same as the Maya do. And also the 9 worlds of the North. Well, yeah, okay, the tree of life, I can buy this in the sky. And I don't know, I sounded crazy now, it really sounded crazy. I'm buying Velikovskian, hook, line, and sinker now. It all makes perfect sense, and I know that somewhere up there, Tesla was building things with this knowledge out of the top of his head, because he was holistically integrated. He could see things, and there he'd sit in the middle of above them all, above rhetoric. Rhetoric is only words, and philosophy is only words, and philosophy and metaphysics are us using words to try and grapple with things, with the ephemeral things we cannot possibly know because of the limitations of our senses. So this is the world I'm in, that I see all this so clearly now, and I don't know who else can understand. But I hope there's a few of you out there. I hope Andrew Cutler and New Brunswick gets me, some guys I've met on the internet, and on the internet we're meeting each other. These bright sparks of heart scattered around the planet that can see the truth. Whether it's the truth of democracy or the truth of history or the truth of science, the truth of what we're up against, the truth of maybe what we can hope to fix. I don't know. Can we fix it all? Can we fix it all using electrics if we open our minds? Maybe. But the Roddenberry economy is the interesting part of it. Like I say, the use of Bitcoin payments, which I'll accept. I'll accept Bitcoin on my Patreon, or outside of Patreon, as I guess the case is. But that a Bitcoin-driven Patreon system, Patreon-type system for artists and generalists, polymaths like myself, polymaths in the sense that I have a mind that fuses, synthesizes knowledge, not synthesizes it to create, but analyzes and generates input. I'm a mentat, as Frank Herbert calls it, and also a sayer. I know what I've seen and I report it. I don't make stuff up. I do interpolate connections, which a truth sayer doesn't do. But that's the mentat part of me, knowing too good goddamn much, you know. That's for damn sure, to quote a very famous newspaper editor from the small town that I at one time called Lillooet, which is in the Fraser Canyon I was speaking of. It is very beautiful. It's the 14th most beautiful community on the planet. Please support its economy. They're what they are. Lillooet is an Indian and cowboy town, mining town, has a rich history. But it's in the middle of this really, really strange volcanology, and you know, that landscape was being torn apart by ice and fire 2,000 years ago when Mount Meteor was erupting, and around the same time the Bridge River volcanoes were erupting. And exactly how the Bridge River Canyon formed, you know, is a really spectacular thing. You know, I challenge a geologist to tell me how it was formed. But it's a spectacular double S curve of rotten rock, 10 miles long, 5,000 feet deep, coming into a mountain range where there used to be a big glacier pushing up against it. So the pressure of the rock weakened it. But why was that particular crack the way it is? Right near the also double S curve of the Fraser River S bend between Fountain and the River Rapids. So everybody go look at the maps and look at the places I'm talking about. I should really do this over again. I want to get a chance to do this over again by adding maps about what I'm talking about. The ice mass and the volcanics, the discharges that would be accompanying the eruptions, because there's a magma movement, would be discharging electricity into the atmosphere, not just gas. The gas is going into the atmosphere because of the electrics pulling it out, pushing it out, pulling it, pushing it, push me, pull you, like Dr. Dolittle talks about with the animal facing both directions. However it works, right? That there's a synthesis between the ice cap and the volcanics in terms of towards Kamloops, towards Vernon, through the Falkland Valley, which is higher than the Shuswap Lake Divide from the Thompson. The Shuswap River and the Okanagan River are only separated at Spalumcheen, which is north of between Vernon and Sycamores. And the elevation there is the age of that elevation there would be the age when when the water flowed out through there would be when the Okanagan River flowed out that way. That would be the spot. The Spalumcheen in the study of what's called province in geography, which is the difference between summits and peaks, the relative height of a peak relative to its highest call, we call it. That would be Spalumcheen, and Spalumcheen for a certain mountain somewhere, you know, and like all of the areas, like the Nechako, for example, at some point might have drained out through Rose Lake, which flows into the Bulkley, the area of the thing. Well, everything I'm talking about with Morristown, the Maurice River Bridge, the state movement of troops in Canada against a sovereign nation that's been there for thousands of years without a treaty. That's all happening near Rose Lake. Rose Lake is what we call the call for Mount Waddington, 30,177 feet, which is the mystery mountain it was until he climbed it and named it from Mount Alfie Waddington, who tried to build the Chilcotin Wagon Road, which caused the Chilcotin War. I think we should rename it. Just that reason. Now that I think about it, people hate it when you rename things. They never saw it, so they never had it before, because you could only see it from a distance. When you're up higher on another mountain, the only time you ever knew it was there. It has a volcano up on it. A couple of them actually. I think the Franklin Glacier volcano is one of them. But yeah, the ice and the volcanics are kind of linked all up and down through the boundary ranges, and I don't know, are they linked in Wells Gray? Because Wells Gray is also high mountains. So this whole notion of that area, the Okanagan going out there, so we can date that. If I can find out the date for Spalumcheen, then we know that. But then underneath that, you had the Tom that had been flowing out that way. And the flow of the Fraser at that time probably also came down. At some point, it would have come down. I don't know, it's complicated around the Clear Range and the mountains. And see the mountains there. The Fraser at some point started seeping out, and it was the smaller outlet of the same glacier rather than the Okanagan lobe eventually. it was already a stream when the ice flowed out to the Okanagan. There would have already been a stream underneath the Fraser ice cap flowing from its center of weight, which was somewhere around between Big Bar and Pavilion on the Fraser, was the center of the ice cap that was pushing the Cordilleran ice cap that began to melt suddenly when the Hiawatha incident happened. Hiawatha crater incident happened, be it an impact or a discharge. Anyway, so that electrical discharge, if that's what it was, and likewise 6,000 year, when it would have caused similar things elsewhere on the planet, and yeah, I could see it. I could see it having a role in melting, the rapid melting of the Lake Missoula. How much water, Dr. Zentner, how much water came out of Lake Missoula? What's the estimate on the volume? And what would be the estimate on the volume of anticipating the famous big one, the Cascadia superquake? You know, I'm glad to be moving to the Fraser Canyon to be out of the way of the Blue Island wave. It's always bothered me since I came back here, and I was used to live in New West and think about it. This was during Fukushima. I said Fukushima is the least of our problems, you know. But the whole world is the least of our problems, you know. I see so much more now. I don't know how the Lord gave me eyes. It's like the more I lose my sight, the more I can see. You know, the less I'm able to move, the more I can dance almost. You know, and the more beautiful you can play, the less you can move. So I don't know. We'll see what happens to me when if I go fully blind. Well, maybe I'll play more beautifully than ever. I don't know. Music's a funny thing. It's a mystery is ill to speak of, like it is with the dionysia of the power of God immanent in man, because we're all electrical creatures. We're all little bright sparks of God, like Shelley Poet to Joy said. You know, and we're all part of this big magical universe, right? But the electrical theory of the universe, it explains so much of the greater cosmos, and it raises questions for our own history as to what else is there and what's down lower in the oceans, about why did the ice caps melt? You know, and what's this story about this one? What did I see on the video I was watching? Yeah, thunder eggs and stuff like that being fallen from the sky, and yeah, they're all like, you know, little captured bits of comet tail. If it's a comet, we call it a comet. In history, we call it a comet. But it's this plasmic fire between the planets. If Velikovsky is right, well, I'll tell you what, it's a lot harder to buy all the slow evolution stuff. But cataclysmic evolution, forced evolution, mass extinction, followed by rapid evolution, by other things, for example, forcing us to take an interest in the skies and go, what was that? And forcing us to study the skies. And maybe we did have help learning how. But the people who learned how before that sea came up in 2000, they retreated to Chaldea from you know, the lower basin between Cyprus. That whole area below Phoenicia, you know, Punic culture is a lot older. The culture is a lot older. It may be the oldest culture that survives the flood. It may be the one that, not just giraffe, remember I mentioned giraffe? You know, the giraffes, what lies underneath, you know, the Arabian Sea, what lies off of India, other than just Dwarka. What else lies down there? What lies in the lost lands of the Hyborian Age? But no, this is before the Hyborian Age. Robert E. Howard's Hyborian Age only starts with the fall of Atlantis. The fall of Atlantis is only one of the ages of the world. There were others. The Hopi tell you about it. The Maya tell us about it. They all tell us about it. And it's time that science has to come out of its little laboratory box. You guys come out of your cubicles, expand your minds. I don't know whether you need to drop acid or take mushrooms or just smoke a lot of pot. You guys need to chill out and realize that all the ancient knowledge is more than worthy knowledge. It should be part of the curriculum. And people shouldn't be studying business and the cult of mammon and how to make profit off the ruination of the world. And yeah, I have engineer friends, you know, who are into the oil. I have a cousin who's in the oil industry, and I have friends that are, you know, hydro engineers, and I'm raised from a hydro engineer's family. Inventors, you know, and friends who are into electric cars and electric grids and electric on. And said before he'd never build it again. It's what caused the earthquake. It's one of his electrical devices, the things he built out of his mind. You can see them and know how to build them. So he was in the bar or something like that and bragged to somebody he could build a little device, a little handheld thing, he'd put it in the Empire State Building, and 9 minutes later it would be dust. Yeah, you can bet they viewed him as a potential terrorist, or especially being a Serbian. Yeah, of course they confiscated all this stuff. But that could only be done by electrics, and what it was he's finding the via solid state, some solid state property, finding the resonant frequency of the building and just giving it a little dose of itself. Matter antimatter like hell. Matter antimatter like hell. You just convert you convert something's form into energy. Energy equals matters MC squared, right? And that was the whole point of this guy's made of the video I was watching. Energy equals mass MC squared is, we've always thought about that just in terms of gravity, but no, it also applies to electricity. The mass times the speed light squared, also potentially the electricity. And it's also much more imminently tappable. We see it all the time, happen every day. We use our houses to power. We use electricity every day. We don't use gravity to power ourselves now, do we? Electricity is omnipresent. It's everywhere. But it also powers our minds, our brains. Yeah, so it really makes sense to me now. So maybe that's why I was born an electrician's kid. I don't know. I always did wonder the magic that made current happen. Rotated magnets within a field. Well, yeah, and this is the whole point of plasmoids. This is the whole point of all our weather and our climate change and the heating of the planet. It's not just chemical. It's not just mechanical. It's holistic. And we had the ancient knowledge of the gods and of the land. We can see it written on the land if we know what we're looking at. Everything is written on the land. Even just human geography is written on the land. And we're looking at why that's a field and why that's not, and where we live and why we don't live where we don't live. And where we don't live as often as the case of Dina moving out of northern BC because of the volcanics or the planetary axes associated with them, whether they be planetary electrics or ordinary planetary technology, ordinary planetology, which has too many questions to be answered yet, all of which electrics can answer. Velikovskian electrics, the Heraclidian fire, Tesla electrics, Teslan magnetics, it's all the same thing. They can answer it. It's a simple answer. And simple things, mighty things were done with simple things that Tesla built. So I know that there's other people out there, in the scientific field, and I automatically somehow wrongly assume that they're all men. With a lot, Madame Curie, she was somewhere out there in magnetics. There's people working on exactly the things I'm talking about. Because I wouldn't be thinking about these things if they weren't logical things, and because I'm logical and I know other people do. There's got to be other people working on these same ideas. So I'm trying to reach out, and I don't know how to title my videos better, and I don't have time to sit and tag them and come up with all the tags I could put each one about all the things I mentioned. It's hard being a polymath. It's hard. It's a great burden to carry, and it's easier to let all the knowledge go than to try to think about it all the time. One thought begets another. You see, it's like when I'm playing music, and one note begets another note, and it gets another note, and this is also the same thought. And thought is a leading process of continuous activity. Would allow such things. Well, that's because the gods don't care about humans. They're mightier than us. Dionysus himself, who was God immanent in man, said so in the Bacchae, the famous the lost religion, his lost speech above the morning agave as she nurses Pentheus's head hands. That he says, "You foolish mortals, that you think that your moral matter to us. No, we don't." And this especially applies to the war of heaven. That we thought that we were victims of it when we built whole moral systems around this war in heaven that we witnessed, which was this massive discharged planetary fires. If the Velikovskian rule is right, that we witnessed that, and we remember in our stories of it, that we felt the lash of heaven. Right? And so we thought it was about us. We thought we did something wrong. Like people now with the fires of homosexual in California, or the liberals, or, I don't know, hey, you Christians in Tornado Alley, you get what you deserve for living there, for your karma. Tornado Alley, the fingers of God, the tornadoes definitely are. Great firestorms in California, which are now more prevalent. We're going to see mega tornadoes. Same as we're seeing mega hurricanes, we're going to see mega tornadoes in the coming season. This year. They're going to get bigger and bigger, and the waters are going to get higher and higher. It's quite the show. I'm finding it quite entertaining. It's actually when I find this stuff and I find it going on, and I begin to realize the scope of it is like, okay, this is more entertaining than Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is just the epitome of the famous American line by P.T. Barnum. There's one born every minute, meaning a sucker, you know. But that and something I've always known, that hatred is negative applause. You make money from it. Fame is built on negative applause, on hatred, you know. And so Trump's famous because people hate him, and the media build off this. Right, so they feed you things you hate in order to, somebody's saying it's a policy to get you pissed off. Get that media hit because they need money off you. That's why the media publishes controversial things, like even why the CBC has Rex Murphy, because people get pissed off and they want to hear what that old asshole is saying. So I've said this before, CBC, I challenge you. You want an interesting weekly guest? Give me 3 minutes, the same way you give Rex Murphy. Have a British Columbian on your national network, or are you not? Or are they going to have a-holes like Campbell's brother, Michael Campbell? I don't really know if I want to be on the national network. I'd much rather be on the free internet, YouTube. But as I was saying about Patreon, that there's a whole new era of Roddenberryism. That we can make a new economy with this. The idea that in Roddenberry's universe, that people would, it got past the point of people having jobs. They had things they enjoyed doing that people rewarded them for. And if they were talented at something, the resources were provided them to do it. This very bourgeois, this sounds very, I don't want to work, well, people just please support me. The reality is I can't work. But what I can do is use my mind to teach you and play beautiful music for you and go to wonderful places and tell you about them and explain the geology of my country and explain ancient history and meta-ancient history and environment. And, I see a lot of science. So I'm going to try and end and try and relax and have another Neocitron. And remember what else I have to do to pack, because